Here they come.
Welcome to another episode of Here They Come. I'm Paul Ramlow.
And I'm Kate Lockhart. And what's that, Paul? It sounds like we're at the beach or something. Could those be waves?
If only we were at the beach. But we're in central Ohio, Kate, and we had over 1.5 feet of snow here over the last week. In fact, the USTA offices were closed for a day and a half earlier this week. We're not far away from the spring season, though, and that means exciting weather and good summer harness racing.
The weather had a pretty serious impact on the racing in the East Coast, didn't it?
Absolutely. Our good friends at Dover Downs have lost an entire week of racing. Other tracks impacted by the weather, the Meadows, Monticello Raceway, the Meadowlands, and Freehold, all had cancellations this week due to the winter weather.
In spite of the bad weather, it seemed like plenty of horsemen made it out to the Blooded Horse Sale in Delaware, Ohio.
Yeah, that's right, Kate. Horsemen from 25 states, 5 Canadian provinces, and even from Europe plowed their way to the famed Delaware County Fairgrounds for the 47th annual winter sale earlier this week. In fact, if memory serves me correctly, they had a winter storm last year during the sale. At least the numbers turned out well. Walnut Hall Limited had a star-studded consignment, and that topped the two-day event with its fabulous trotters. The sales topper was Lady Stormont, the broodmare with a new Dewey Cheatham and Howe foal by her side. She sold for $80,000 to Eric Baker of Long Sault, Ontario. You can read a complete recap of a Blooded Horse winter sale on the USTA website, www.ustrotting.com.
Well, last week we mentioned some of the 2009 O'Brien Award winners, but there was one we left out. Andrew Cohen won for his No Holds Barred article, which was published last year in Trot magazine. It was an article in which he discussed the future of harness racing and what needs to be done by all participants to ensure the future of the sport. Nicole Kraft caught up with Andrew Cohen to talk about his thoughts about harness racing, as well as his effort for Halters for Hope.
Well, Andrew, it is a great pleasure to talk with you today. How's the weather out there in Colorado?
You know, I wish I could say it's snowing and take some of the pressure off everybody on the East Coast, but it's gorgeous and sunny.
You know, there's a lot of things about you that seem an anomaly. You're in Colorado, and you're involved in harness racing. You're the CBS News legal correspondent for the CBS Radio, and you're involved in harness racing. How do you get involved in harness racing, coming from that background?
Well, I was born in Montreal, and my father owned horses at Blue Bonnets back in the 70s, and I was sort of a track rat. He took me to the barn every Saturday and Sunday mornings to sort of look through his horses and talk to the trainers, and I loved it. Just a few years ago, when I turned 40, I decided to get back into it, to sort of have a single vice. I don't play golf. I don't have fancy cars, and so bought a couple of horses with my dad. He's since passed away, but I just love the sport, and I'm trying really hard in whatever way I can to make sure that my son, Sam, will have a chance, if he wants to participate in it.
You've been very outspoken in a lot of areas about harness racing. What are the key areas that you feel need attention and that you've been involved in?
You know, we do a very good job of addressing the relatively minor issues, and there have been major improvements since I've been back involved in that end, whether it's new technologies, whether it's a little bit more coordination. But on the big issues, like how are we going to survive with a dwindling fan base, and how are we going to continue to race races if and when these subsidies from these slot money, when they fall off the table, we just don't have a coordinated response right now, and we don't have a whole lot of people who are willing to step forward and say, here's what we need to do and here's how we can do it. So I've tried to not only educate myself, but try to sort of sound the alarm, because I want this industry around.
I'm sure there's lots of people out there that would love to do something and maybe feel powerless, that they don't know what they should do. What would you say to them?
You know, anybody who's got a stake has an opportunity to help through some sort of new organization, whether it's through the USTA, but to get a coordinated, focused, centralized response to some of these problems. You know, getting new people involved in the sport is another area. I think the USTA is to be commended for all the new media stuff that it's done. I think that's the way you're going to draw in newer people and younger people, but it's still, we have a long way to go.
Now, another area that you've really taken the lead on is starting a new organization to help some of the retired horses out there find new homes, Halters for Hope. I've been very lucky to work with you on that. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how it got started, and what you're trying to do with it?
We collect from breeders and owners and trainers and friends the halters of famous horses. Donato Hanover, Some Beach Somewhere, Well Said, you pretty much name it, and then we make those halters available to fans all over the world to buy them at a fairly low price. and then we give all of the money, 100% of it, to various charities. We get new halters in virtually every week, and on Facebook, thanks to the USTA, and we've been able to muster up about 600 or so fans so far in just the past few weeks.
Well, it's great stuff, and I know that the industry appreciates all that you've done, Andrew, and I certainly appreciate all that you've done with Halters for Hope.
It's my pleasure.
Hoofbeats is offering an exciting opportunity for subscribers to win a shoe from Muscle Hill, along with other memorabilia from the trotter's career. All current subscribers to Hoofbeats magazine and Hoofbeats Direct are eligible to enter, which they can do by visiting the entry page found off of www.ustrotting.com. In addition to the winner of Muscle Hill's shoe, 10 other subscribers will be drawn, 5 for a second-place prize of an autographed print of Muscle Hill, and 5 third-place winners will receive an autographed copy of the February issue of Hoofbeats featuring Muscle Hill on the cover. Again, if you'd like to enter, visit www.ustrotting.com or Hoofbeats Magazine's homepage, www.hoofbeatsmagazine.com. And that brings us to this week's installment of the Hollywood Minute, brought to you by Hoofbeats Magazine, reporting with horsepower.
How's the weather treating you out there in Jersey? You dug out yet from all the snow?
Well, last week it missed us here in New Jersey when we weren't sure. It didn't miss us this time. About 1.5 feet came midweek, and it's pretty bad, but everybody's pretty much ready to go. The roads are clear, so if you can get there, you can race.
Well, I thought we'd shake things up a little bit, get you out of your winter doldrums, and let's take our Stump Hollywood Heyden question first and see how you do. We have Bob Lewis again out in New York is asking you, what is the name of the horse that was favored in 2 of Niatros's starts in 1979 when he was a 2-year-old?
Including the Wilson, that would be Whammo, trained by Charlie Clark, who I remember being a licensed pilot also, but he wasn't flying fast enough to go past Niatros in Nat Wilson. That was the richest race of all time when he won it. And then later on, he won the richest race again next year in the Meadowlands Pace.
Well, I'm sure you know that Niatros topped the experimental ratings in 1980, and Stan Bergstein certainly seems to have a knack for picking the best 3-year-old coming back. This year, Sports Writer's the number 1 horse in the pacing experimentals, so I was wondering what you thought about that.
Yeah, it's really a good list. I mean, looking at this year's top 25, Rock and Roll Hanover, his first crop of 3-year-olds has 5 of the top 18. The only other sire on that list with 5 is Art Major. Art's Place, the sire of Sports Writer, that's his last colt, but he's 4 of the mares here. 4 of the broodmares are Art's Place broodmares, so his influence is still felt throughout. Fancy Filly at number 10 is the highest ranking filly on the list. No filly has ever been number 1 on the pacing side. It's happened on the trotting side. Bob McIntosh is familiar with this list. He's been on this list. Nebupenizer was on last year, number 1. Western Shooter back in 2002. Island Fantasy and Live or Die. So he's actually been on this list 4 times in the last 15 years.
Well, you mentioned Bob McIntosh, and it seems like maybe the experimentals don't do as well for him as others. Of course, the extremely ill-fated Western Shooter, and Nebuchadnezzar, unfortunately, did not come back as a 3-year-old.
Yeah, and Peter Pan, Bob Glazer gave me an update. Nebuchadnezzar had tendon surgery last year, and there's no timetable for his 4-year-old return. So we'll keep an eye on Nebuchadnezzar.
All right, Bob, it's great to talk to you, and good luck digging out your car.
Okay, we'll try it.
Thank you very much, Bob. If you would like to try to stump Hollywood Heyden, send your question to hoofbeats@ustrotting.com. Julie Miller has joined the field of women drivers who will compete in Monticello Raceway's Lady Godiva Pace on Monday afternoon, February 15th. The Lady Godiva Pace will be the first leg of Ann Curran's Mildred Williams International Women's Driving Series, which will continue until the late fall with contests in both the United States and Canada. Julie Miller is an outstanding conditioner and the trainer of Lucky Jim, the Dan Patch Award winner as Ushua's Older Trotting Male of the Year. Though she is very happy leaving the driving to her husband Andy, Julie knows her way around the racetrack too. It should be interesting to see her compete against the other female drivers in the Lady Godiva Pace. Kate?
I know this is women drivers and women's participation in the sport, something that's been talked about on Harnessphere. And it's great to see this series get started again. I'm looking forward to seeing the action they've got this year. That wraps up another episode of Here They Come. We'd like to thank Andrew Cohen, Bob Hollywood Heyden, Nicole Kraft, and our producer Rich Johnson for putting the show together. I'm Kate Lockhart.
And I'm Paul Ramlow. Join us again next week for another exciting episode of Here They Come.